I don't remember what I said first, only the way she looked at me. That half-second pause before her smile, like she'd walked straight into a memory she didn't expect to find alive again. Elena. My best friend's mother. The house was quieter than I remembered. She'd changed the curtains. The smell was different too, softer, something like cedar and citrus peel. I'd stopped by to drop off a book her son left at my place, but it felt like I'd stepped into the past, only rearranged. She appeared from the kitchen, hair tied loosely, sleeves rolled above her elbows. "Noah?" she said, like she wasn't sure I was real. Her voice was lower than I remembered, a little rasp at the edges. "Hey, Mrs. Lane. I just came to return this." I held out the book, but my hand didn't move forward. It hung there between us. She didn't take it right away. Just looked at it, then at me, eyes narrowing slightly as if comparing me to someone she used to know. "You've grown," she said finally. "You look older." It should have been a simple thing to hear, but the way she said it, the slow drift in her tone, made the air heavier. The kettle clicked behind her, breaking the silence. She turned, and I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for minutes. I followed her into the kitchen out of habit, pretending to be casual. The place looked smaller, or maybe she just filled it differently now, movements slower, deliberate. She poured tea like it mattered how the steam rose. "So, how's school?" she asked. "It's fine," I said, though she didn't seem to care about the answer. She was stirring honey into her cup, gaze drifting somewhere near the window. For a moment, I watched her reflection in the glass, how her fingers brushed her hair aside, how her shoulders lifted when she sighed. There was something in that small gesture that made my throat tighten. She turned suddenly, catching me looking. "What?" "Nothing," I said too quickly. "Just, I remember you used to make that same tea when we were kids." Her lips curved, a private smile. "You remember that?" I nodded. "I remember everything." That made her still. The spoon stopped moving. A faint color rose in her cheeks before she looked down, setting the cup aside. "You shouldn't," she murmured. Her words should have been teasing, but they weren't. They landed like a warning she didn't want to give. I leaned against the counter, pretending not to notice how her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her mug. "I didn't mean anything by it," I said softly. "I know." Silence filled the space again, thick and electric. The clock ticked, a drop of water hit the sink. I could smell her perfume now, faint jasmine mixed with something warm, like vanilla that had been left too close to heat. When she finally looked up, her eyes softened, regret and recognition tangled together. "You always were the one I tried to forget," she said, voice low, almost to herself. For a second I didn't move. Couldn't. The words hung in the air like heat before rain, impossible to escape. "Elena." I said her name before I realized it, and she froze at the sound of it. Then, a sudden knock at the door. Her body stiffened. She glanced at me, then toward the hallway, heartbeat visible in her throat. "Don't," she whispered, almost pleading, as she stepped past me. And just like that, the moment cracked, the air still humming between us, unfinished. I told myself not to think about it. Her voice, that look, the words she let slip before the knock. But I did. Every hour after. When she opened the door that day, it was just a delivery guy, but by the time he left, something between us had shifted, quiet, invisible, but real. A week later, I found myself walking the same street, telling myself I was just passing by. My steps slowed near her gate, and before I could turn back, she was there, trimming a rosebush, wearing a faded sweatshirt and gardening gloves. She noticed me instantly. That same pause. "You're persistent," she said, though there was a flicker of a smile. "Just lucky, maybe." She raised an eyebrow but didn't send me away. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and rain-damp fabric. I'd forgotten how intimate a home could feel when it was quiet. Her son was out of town now, visiting his father, she said. She didn't offer more, and I didn't ask, though I noticed the absence of a ring on her hand when she poured me coffee. "Do you ever miss him?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her gaze drifted to the floor. You mean my ex-husband? I nodded. She shrugged, slow and deliberate. I miss who I thought he was. That's different. The honesty in her voice disarmed me. What about you? She asked, turning it back on me. You ever miss someone? I hesitated. Not really. I think I keep people too far away to miss them. Her lips tightened in a knowing sort of way. That's safer. The rain started soon after, soft, steady. She moved to close the window, and when she reached across me, her arm brushed mine. Bare skin. Warm. It wasn't deliberate, but she didn't pull back right away either. Her hair smelled faintly of rain and something floral. My pulse caught somewhere between my ribs. She turned close enough that I could see a faint scar near her collarbone, small, pale, the kind that looked like a story never told. I almost asked. Didn't. Instead, I said, You shouldn't be alone all the time. She smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't match it. And you shouldn't say things like that. The quiet stretched, long enough for the rain to become heavier. I watched a drop slide down her wrist before she pulled away, pretending to busy herself with the kettle. You're too young to understand the mess people like me carry, she said softly. Try me, I whispered. That made her stop. She turned slowly, studying me, as if trying to decide whether to push me away or admit she didn't want to. The kettle clicked, but neither of us moved. Finally, she reached out, not to touch me, not exactly. Her hand hovered near my shoulder, fingers brushing the fabric of my sleeve. It wasn't a full touch, more like permission hanging between us. I looked up at her, and she exhaled, shallow, shaky, almost like surrender. For the first time, she didn't hide it. The wanting. Outside, thunder rolled, low and far away, as if the world itself was holding its breath with us. Neither of us said a word. But she didn't move her hand away. It happened the next evening. I told myself I wasn't going back, that I'd already crossed some invisible line, but my hands turned the wheel toward her street anyway. Elena's lights were on. The living room window glowed soft gold, and for a moment, I just sat in the car, engine idling, watching her silhouette move behind the curtain. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, then resigned, like she'd been expecting this even if she told herself she wasn't. You shouldn't be here, Noah. I know. Then why are you? I don't know. The truth hung there, thin and dangerous. She stepped aside anyway. The room was dim, just a single lamp by the couch. A record played softly somewhere, something old and slow, the kind of music that seemed made for almosts. She poured wine this time, not tea. Her hand trembled just slightly as she passed me the glass. Our fingers brushed, too long, too deliberate to be an accident. Your son's not back yet? I asked. Tomorrow. That word felt heavy. Tomorrow meant this couldn't last. We sat close but not touching. I could hear her breathing, uneven, like she was trying to steady it. He told me you were helping him with some papers last week, she said suddenly, eyes fixed on the rim of her glass. He really trusts you. The way she said it made me feel like I'd stolen something. I wouldn't hurt him, I said. I know you wouldn't. Her voice softened. That's what scares me. The rain started again, the same rhythm as before. She got up to close the window, and her phone buzzed on the table, his name flashing on the screen. We both looked. Neither of us moved. Then she turned the phone face down, hand lingering on it for a moment before she exhaled. When she faced me again, something in her broke, or maybe loosened. You make me forget myself, she whispered. I stood up before I could think better of it. She didn't step back. The space between us vanished, heartbeat by heartbeat. Her breath brushed my chin, her perfume mixed with rain and red wine. She tilted her head slightly, not away, not toward, caught in the gravity of a decision neither of us wanted to name. My hand rose, hovering near her face. Elena! Her lips parted barely, and I thought, just for a second, that she'd let it happen. Then, the front door rattled. A voice called from outside. Mom? You home? We froze. Her hand flew to my chest, pushing me gently but firmly back. Go, she mouthed. I hesitated. Her eyes pleaded. I slipped toward the kitchen as the door opened. Her son's footsteps echoed in the hall. From the narrow doorway, I saw her straighten her hair, force a calm she didn't feel. Their voices mingled casual, ordinary, but her hand was still trembling when she set the wineglass down. Our eyes met for half a second before she turned away. And in that silence, I knew neither of us could pretend anymore. The distance we tried to keep had already disappeared. I didn't see her for days after that night. I told myself it was better, that the silence was her way of closing the door we'd cracked open too far. But every time my phone lit up, my pulse jumped before logic could catch up. When she finally called, her voice was smaller than I remembered. Can you stop by? Just for a minute. Just for a minute. The minutes stretched into hours. Her son was gone again, a study trip this time. She didn't mention it, but I noticed the car missing from the driveway, the quiet that only lived people could fill. Elena opened the door before I could knock twice. Her hair was loose, a little damp, and she looked like she hadn't slept. I shouldn't have called, she said quickly. But you did, I answered. She looked away, exhaling. I keep trying to forget what almost happened. And it keeps finding me anyway. That was all it took. I stepped inside, and she didn't stop me. The storm outside was worse this time, heavy rain beating the windows, wind pulling at the eaves. The whole house felt alive, trembling. She moved to light a candle when the power flickered, and for a moment the glow caught the edge of her face, tired, beautiful, unsure. Elena, I said, crossing the room before I could stop myself. She turned startled. I don't want to ruin anything, I said, but pretending nothing's there, it's exhausting. Her lips parted, words caught somewhere between want and denial. This isn't right, she whispered, though she didn't sound convinced. Maybe not, I said, but it's real. I reached up, brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. My thumb grazed her skin, soft, warm, trembling just beneath the surface. Her eyes closed for a moment, too long, too honest. When she opened them again, everything unspoken sat there between us, pulsing like a heartbeat. She stepped closer until her chest brushed against mine, just barely, enough for me to feel the uneven rhythm of her breath. You have no idea, she said softly. How many times I told myself to stay away. Then why didn't you? Her fingers found the back of my wrist, holding it still against her cheek. Because you look at me like I'm still someone worth wanting. The air in the room thickened. I leaned in, close enough to taste her breath, close enough that my hand slid to the back of her neck without thought. Her eyes flicked to my lips, then back. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She didn't. The candle flickered, thunder cracked. Her hand rose to my shirt, gripping the fabric. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath, everything leaning toward one impossible second, then the front gate slammed. A voice outside, familiar, too close. Her body tensed instantly. We froze, inches apart, still breathing each other's air. Go, she whispered again, but this time her voice broke halfway through the word. I didn't move. She looked up, eyes wet, voice barely there. If you stay, I won't stop you. The storm had passed by morning, but the house still smelled of rain, damp air, candle wax, and something faintly metallic, like nerves left over. I hadn't meant to stay that long. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, the blanket she'd wordlessly draped over me half slipped to the floor. When I woke, she was sitting at the table, phone in hand, staring at nothing. The early light made her look softer, almost fragile. Elena, I said quietly. She flinched, turning the phone face down. You shouldn't be here when he gets back. I know. Her fingers brushed her temple like she was trying to erase a thought. He called last night, she said. He heard something. Said he thought he heard your voice when I answered. My stomach tightened. What did you tell him? That it was the TV. Her laugh came out dry, humorless. He didn't believe me. The silence stretched thin between us. I crossed to her side of the table, but she didn't look up. You don't owe me anything, I said. She shook her head. It's not about owing. It's about what this could do if anyone knew. I hesitated. Then let me go, Elena. Her eyes flicked up sharp, hurting. Don't you think I've tried? The words hit harder than I expected. She stood suddenly, the chair scraping against the floor, and walked toward the window. Her reflection in the glass looked almost like another person, one who still wanted something she wasn't supposed to want. I thought I was lonely before, she said, voice shaking. But this is worse. Because now I know what I was missing. I stepped closer. What's that? Her breath trembled. Someone who sees me. She turned then, and whatever restraint we'd been holding cracked again. I reached for her without meaning to, fingertips brushing her arm, sliding down until our hands met. Her skin was cool, but her pulse jumped under my thumb. You make it sound like that's wrong, I murmured. Isn't it? She said, but her voice had already softened. We were too close again, our shadows overlapping on the wall. The air felt charged, a heartbeat from something we couldn't take back. Then her phone buzzed once more. She looked at it, froze, then turned the screen toward me. A message. Mom, Noah said he's coming by later to drop off my notes. Can you make sure you're home? Her face strained of color. My throat went dry. He thinks. She started, but couldn't finish. I took a step back. The room suddenly felt smaller, heavier. She pressed her hand to her lips, shaking her head. He can't find out. Not like this. Elena, no, she said, firmer now. You need to decide. If you walk through that door again, it won't be by accident. I stared at her, at the way her hand still gripped the phone, knuckles pale. The storm outside had ended, but inside, it hadn't moved an inch. And before I could stop myself, I said it, quietly, recklessly. Then leave it unlocked. By the time I reached her door again, night had fallen. The rain hadn't returned, but the sky still held that heavy, waiting silence that comes after storms, the kind that feels like it knows something you don't. The porch light was on. The door was, just like she said, unlocked. I stood there for a long time before pushing it open. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, hair tied back loosely. The same wine bottle from before sat half empty on the counter. You came, she said, voice barely above a whisper. You left it open. Her laugh was quiet, almost a tremor. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't. She turned to face me then, eyes raw, unguarded. Why didn't you? I stepped closer. Because you asked me to. The space between us felt like it was made of glass. One wrong word, and it would shatter. I don't know how to do this, she said, voice breaking. I've spent half my life pretending I don't need anyone. And now? She took a shaky breath. Now you're here, and I can't pretend anymore. I closed the distance slowly. My hand brushed her arm, tracing the faint line of her shoulder. Her skin was warm, too warm. She didn't pull away this time. Her eyes searched mine, like she wanted me to say something that would make it all make sense. But there was no logic left, just breath and heartbeat. Elena, she swallowed hard. You don't understand what this will cost. I'm not thinking about later. You should. Then tell me to go. Her silence was louder than any answer. The clock ticked once, then twice. Her hand rose, hesitated midair, before resting lightly against my chest. I've tried to be good my whole life, she whispered. And it never made me happy. Her forehead brushed mine, and everything went still, sound, air, thought. My pulse stumbled. I could feel her breath, unsteady and warm, ghosting across my lips. This is the moment, she said softly, like she was talking to herself. The one we'll never come back from. I nodded, voice barely there. I know. Her hand trembled against my heart. And for a second, the world leaned forward with us. Then she closed her eyes. I thought she'd pull me in. Instead, she stepped back. Noah, she said, voice low, aching. If I don't stop now, I won't stop at all. The air between us felt hollow, like something sacred had been broken open. She looked at me, really looked, her gaze softer than it had ever been. I wanted you, she admitted, more than I've wanted anything in years. But what I really needed was to remember I could still feel something. I nodded slowly, throat tight. You're not the only one. For a long time, we just stood there, not touching, not moving, two people who finally understood everything they couldn't have. When I turned to leave, she didn't stop me. But as the door closed behind me, I heard her voice, quiet, shaking. You always were the one I tried to forget. This time, it didn't sound like regret. I didn't see her for weeks. The silence wasn't angry. It was gentler than that, the kind that lets something settle instead of forcing it away. I told myself I was moving on, but every ordinary thing I did felt like pretending. Then one evening, I saw her again. By accident. Or maybe not. The coffee shop near the university was almost empty. She was sitting by the window, a paperback open but unread, her fingers idly tracing the rim of her cup. The light caught in her hair just the same way it always had. When she looked up, she froze for a moment. Then, that faint, uncertain smile. I walked over. No words at first, just a quiet exchange of surprise and something deeper, something that had never really gone away. Hi, I said finally. Hi, she answered. Her voice was softer now, steadier. I gestured toward the chair across from her. Is this seat? She nodded before I could finish. It's always been. For a while, we didn't talk about anything that mattered. Weather. Work. The coffee being too strong. Safe words to cover everything unsafe. But the pauses gave us away, the way her eyes lingered, the way my hand kept brushing the edge of the table, too close to hers. Finally, she sighed. I thought I'd never see you again. I thought the same, I said. But thinking didn't help. Her laugh was small, real. You're still the same. Older, I corrected. She tilted her head. You always carried more years than you had. That made me smile, and something in her softened. The tension that had once kept us apart felt lighter now, like we'd already survived the hardest part. I don't want to ruin what we managed to save, she said quietly. You won't, I said. You already saved it. Her hand hesitated above the table, then found mine. The contact was small, but it filled the whole room. Her thumb moved slowly, tracing the back of my hand, as if memorizing it for a second time. There was no rush, no fear this time, just the calm of two people who finally knew the truth and weren't running from it. I used to think what we wanted was wrong, she said. But maybe it was just mistimed. Then maybe time owes us a little now, I said. She smiled again, the real kind, the one I remembered from that first day. We stayed like that, fingers intertwined, the noise of the world moving quietly around us. No more hiding, no more almosts. Just her warmth, the soft rhythm of her breath, the quiet relief of something that didn't have to be secret anymore. When we finally stood to leave, she touched my arm, gentle, grounding. I never really forgot you, she said. I know, I answered. Neither did I. Outside, the sun was setting, the sky blushing into the same gold that used to spill through her kitchen window. We walked out together, side by side. Not sneaking. Not pretending. Just together. And when she looked at me, her smile said everything the words couldn't.